They realized they'd been fighting for half a month. Their night raid had left Martin with 700 men dead and 2,000 soldiers wounded. Desertion continued to be a problem, which dropped their total count to about 23,000. Of course, it wasn't as if Natra had suffered no casualty. Out of their 5,000 soldiers, 3,000 were left. As a whole, their defenses were spread thin, but based on results alone, it was clear they were putting up a stiff resistance. Their soldiers understood this, and their spirits were high amid the trials they endured. That was the most significant difference between Martin and Natra. As his army rejoiced, Wayne was in a tent locked in a staring contest with his paperwork. Food supplies are fine. As for other supplies, we're definitely running short, but we can still make it work. From every direction, the reports flew in, and they were in better condition than Wayne had expected. Man, it's so hard being right all the time. It's so freaking hard when things work out exactly as planned, he boasted sarcastically. By his side, Nanim was in total agreement for once. It's wonderful everything is going well. Compared with us, our enemy's offensive strength has been a lot weaker recently. Do you still think they're going to withdraw? Wayne shook his head. Absolutely not. There's no way. Maybe if they'd done it within a week, at the very start of battle, but it's too late for them to back out now. We've given those guys a hell of a beating, and they still got nothing to show for it. They're pretty much bursting at the seams, ready to get back at us. Wayne gave a good-natured smile that said, "And it's all thanks to me." He continued, "They must have finally realized bulldozing their way through won't work. They're probably busy concocting a new plan. I bet they'll strike as soon as they're ready." "By new plan, you mean a siege weapon?" "Yeah, I mean, they've only got weapons to battle on level ground. Don't you think they're scraping together a ladder or a catapult right about now?" "Even if they brought a catapult to a mountain, they wouldn't be able to use it," she observed. "People tend to forget the obvious when they're driven into a corner." If his troops were able to get past Martin's next scheme, they would finally put this fighting to rest by hitting their enemy with more snags and roadblocks. With that, Martin might even start entertaining the idea of reconciling with him. Whether the crux of it survived or not was all in the groundwork. My plan is perfectly sane. In 2 weeks we can kiss this cooped-up life goodbye. Nanim responded with the on-the-fence skepticism. "That'd be wonderful news. I've had enough of this mountain view." "You're telling me. I want to kick back in the royal palace again. I could use a nice bath. I have to conserve hot water here." In wartime, water was a precious commodity, doubly so when you're barricaded in your own fort. The most you could hope for was an occasional wipe-down. Soaking in a bathtub of hot water was out of the question. Nanim was no exception to this rule. "Ah, I thought you were standing so far away from me lately. Could it be because you smell... Ow!" She'd flicked a pawn straight at Wayne's cheek. "Will you stop saying such things? Ugh, don't think this means you win." "It's not about whether you win or lose." As they bantered back and forth, they sensed someone entering the tent. "Pardon me, Your Highness." It was Raklam. Wayne and Nanim righted themselves and faced him. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Sir, we have a messenger from Martin." "A messenger?" He frowned. Sending a messenger here meant Martin was hoping to negotiate a deal. It was something he'd secretly been hoping for. He should have gladly welcomed it with open arms, but the timing was slightly off. Martin was conserving their power for a full-on assault. For them, the idea of reconciling was a mere afterthought. "Maybe we drove Martin into a corner earlier than I thought." "No, that's not it. It could be they're here to throw us off before they attack, or..." He erred on the side of caution and gave his orders. "Understood. At any rate, let's agree to meet. Nanim, hurry up and set up the location it should be. Let's say about halfway up the mine. Raklam, have the guards in the area heighten security. Martin might move out while I'm still getting everything ready." "Understood," she replied. "Please leave it to me." Nanim and Raklam swiftly exited the tent. Wayne used this time to continue his thoughts. Their homeland could have put them on hold. The Martin army is way off schedule, after all. Fish Tower and the royal palace must be furious, wondering why they haven't gotten the mine back yet. The vassals are probably starting to sweat a little beneath the collar, too. One of them probably suggested this, even though it's late in the game. And if the vassal was so important that Drawwood couldn't ignore him, he needed to at least send a messenger, even if it was just for show. Of course, this was just Wayne's hypothesis. He had no idea whether that was actually the case. But with Martin fighting past their proposed schedule, the royal court was, no doubt, pressuring them to wrap things up. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, huh, Drawwood? Purred Wayne, picturing his opponent's dour expression in his mind. Long story short, Wayne's guess was right on the mark. General, another messenger from the royal palace, announced a commander. Drawwood clicked his tongue and turned toward one of his grim-faced officers. Handle it and get them out of here. I don't have time to deal with them right now. But General, with all due respect, if we reject another messenger, they may start to wonder if something is going on. They may even bring up siege weapons we've been collecting. Drawwood gritted his teeth, making no effort to hide his impatience. This was the difference between him and Wayne. The Crown Prince was the kingdom's new leader. Even if he didn't deliver what he promised, all he had to do was a little arm twisting, and he had the power to see that through. On the other hand, Drawwood was just a military commander. He could never compare to the authority of a king who could cut off one's professional and corporeal head whenever he fancied. Drawwood needed to continue offering results, obvious results, to the king and his chief vassals to prevent them from offing his head. But he couldn't do it. The mine should have been recovered in a week, but twice the time had already passed. Progress was so slow they ended up having to request the siege weapon, a new plan. Of course, the palace would send messengers to ask what's going on. The headquarters had been able to dodge the issue and chase the messengers away so far. But time was running out. It felt as if he could hear the voice of Minister Holonia taking the fall for him. The minister held a shield at Drawwood's back, but even that continued to crumble away. What was the message? He asked quietly, drawing a long breath. Sir, we are to seize the mine immediately. To do that, we are to reach an agreement with Natra. It was the other commanders' turns to lose their tempers. Absolutely moronic. A compromise? Now? Impossible. We've spilled so much blood fighting for them, and for what? General Drawwood, let's forget the gossip mongers in the royal court and move forward with the assault. One by one, the officers rejected this decision unanimously. But it wasn't just hubris that stood in the way of ending the war. It was also their impatience. They hadn't received any battle honors yet. At this stage, they couldn't possibly hope for this plan to earn them any awards. Drawwood shared their sentiments, of course, but he had to react appropriately. Fine. Send a messenger to Natra. General? But that's... Relax. It's superficial. We can send a messenger and still save face when Natra refuses our offer. In the meantime, we'll move forward and take back the mine with force. See? Everything works out. The plan seemed to satisfy his officers, and they nodded as one. Logan, you go as a messenger. The man Drawwood pointed out was his adjutant. Only one of his trusted personnel could ensure all hopes of reconciliation were dashed. Don't kiss their ass too much, he warned. Make them want to fight till their dying breath. In the end, barbarians need very little provocation, right? Logan snarked. Right, but don't screw up and piss them off so much they kill you, understood? After reviewing the conditions of his proposal for a few hours, their messenger was sent off to the mine. When Ninem saw the messenger arrive at the meeting, her very first thought was, this guy has no intention of negotiating anything. Logan spoke with arrogance, even though the man sitting on the other side of the table was a crown prince. For these discussions, consider my words to be those of Supreme Commander Drawwood. That said, Prince Wayne, your pet dogs down here are quite well trained. General Drawwood has high regard for them. At this, a jolt ran through the guards, surging in their bodies. If Wayne hadn't held them back, Logan would have been skewered on the spot. Well, Sir Logan, what has brought you here to us today? Surely you wouldn't climb a mountain simply to provoke us? Of course, he snorted. We don't waste time in such useless pursuits. I've come here with one purpose, to seek reconciliation, he said, but the conditions he tossed out were absolutely absurd. The demands included immediate withdrawal from the mine, confiscation of all weapons, return of the mine residents, and compensation for suddenly seizing Marden territory. Wayne wouldn't want to go forward with this negotiation. What do you think, Prince Wayne? Unfortunately, we cannot accept under those conditions. It was an obvious conclusion. Our aim is to reach as equal a compromise as possible, claimed Logan. However, if you prolong this war, I'm afraid your head may return to your homeland, severed from your body. A frightening thought indeed. However, Sir Logan, I expect I'll be returning in triumph. I see. It seems you're surrounded by nothing but dogs. I'm warning you only out of concern for your welfare, but you do well to keep company with those who question your own folly. Logan stood. It seemed the meeting would end this same way it started. Honestly, what a waste of time. Sighing inside, Ninim already began mapping out the post-meeting cleanup in her mind, but something unexpectedly stopped her in her tracks. Logan had halted and pivoted around when Ninim caught his eye. You ought to toss away the ashy slave. Keeping such a filthy thing nearby is unfitting for one of noble blood, he spat. Logan was oblivious to the fact that the air in the room froze over. Ninim tried to talk to Wayne, but any words she wanted to say held fast in her throat. From behind, she felt an unfamiliar, blood-curdling energy ooze out of Wayne's body. Sir Logan. Wayne's flat voice echoed in the room. You said before that your words were those of General Drawwood. Are you sure of that? They certainly are. What of it? Oh, it's nothing. Please tell the General that I hope he looks after his health. With a questioning look, Logan departed without another word. Even after he was gone, Wayne sat motionless, as tension filled and congealed in the room. Ninim steeled herself. Your Highness? She called out. I let you down, Ninim, he interrupted. Jiva was different, so I got careless. Prejudice against the Flam really does run deep in the West. I wasn't thinking about it clearly enough when I brought you here. I put you through a lot of pain. Not at all. You did nothing of the sort. I'll be more aware from now on. Well, I'll leave the rest here to you. I'll head back to headquarters. Yes, understood. Wayne stood and began heading toward the summit. With his order to tidy up, Ninim could only watch his back fade into the distance. When he was finally out of earshot, Wayne growled at his guards. Call Raklam. A few days after this meeting, Marden was finally prepared to launch their attack. With the gold mine as its stage, the war between Marden and Natra had reached its final act. General, all troops are in position. The ladders have been set in all directions. We await your order, General. The commanders lined up in front of Drawwood were jabbering, talking on top of one another. He let out a deep sigh and gave them a piercing glare. It's been 3 weeks since the battle started. We've wasted enough time. What was supposed to be a quick war turned into a tangled mess. Drawwood had lost his men to dirty, wicked schemes, and his once plentiful supplies continued to edge dangerously close to rock bottom. This is all because of my immorality. I've caused you and everyone else great hardship. An easy victory had been dragged on and on. He was unlikely to receive any recognition or awards for his efforts. In fact, there was more than enough possibility that he might be tried as a war criminal or something. But none of that mattered anymore. If he could defeat the barbarians, he'd be satisfied. Our humiliation ends today. By the time evening comes, we'll dye this mountain red with the blood of the foreign scourge. Go forth. Yes, sir. With the sun blazing at its zenith, and their sights set on the mine, the Marden were ready to launch its full-scale attack. Soon enough, Wayne caught wind of the news at the summit. So they're finally going for it, huh? He mumbled to himself. He quickly issued orders to the messenger. We're deserting the defensive posts in the lower half of the mine. Gather soldiers to tighten security higher up. Understood. Also, tell the miners to collapse any tunnels halfway up the mountain and lower. We don't want the enemy getting in any of them. I'll see to it immediately. The messenger rushed out of the tent. The only one left, Ninim turned to Wayne. Can we hold out? Doubt it. His reply was concise. We've kept control of the situation by restricting their attack routes to the mountain paths. If they carve out their own way of climbing up, it'll become a battle of attrition. Once that happens, we haven't got a chance. You mean we wouldn't have a chance if nothing changes, right? Exactly, he smiled. I'll leave Hagal to command here. Step back and support him, Ninam. Okay, but don't die, Wayne. How could I? I'm leaving my heart here. I don't see why I would. He cooed, stroking her hair lightly, and with that he left the tent. Waiting outside for him was Raklam. Your Highness? Raklam, how are we looking? Everything is ready. We can depart at any time. Wayne nodded in satisfaction. Time to pay his dumb mug a visit. At the gold mine, the battle raged on, mostly one-sided. The Marden forces bypassed the mountain roads by stretching long ladders up the cliffs to climb them one by one, like ants swarming a giant mountain of sugar. Despite their superior skills, the Natcher soldiers were clearly outnumbered. They'd fortified the upper half of the mountain and did their best to keep the enemy back. But even from the foot of the gold mine, it was evident they were slowly being picked off. General, our units are overpowering them in all directions, repeated an animated voice, a messenger. Anyone could tell the tides had shifted in Marden's favor at long last. And it's only a matter of time before they surrender, said one of Drawood's commanders. Around the room, the officers in the headquarters wore bright, optimistic expressions. But then Drawood addressed them sternly. Don't grow careless. You don't know what desperate acts a savage will do when cornered, he growled. Is the back of the mine under control? Yes, even if the enemy tries to escape, we have enough men in position to stop them. Sir Logan has taken command, so there should be no issues. Good. If they do spy any of those beasts, show them no mercy. We'll make sure every single one rots on this land, he spat. Just as Drawood was gloating in his grandstanding, he could see a few Marden cavalrymen rush into their tent. The General, where is General Drawood? There's an urgent message from Captain Logan. The voice traveled far for all to hear. The commanders looked at one another, anxious to hear the news. And urgent news had never been good for them. Did something happen at the back end of the hill? I'll hear it. Get the messengers. Sir, hey guys over there. The general is this way. Called over by the commanders, the messengers dismounted their horses and ran to Drawood and knelt before him. Report. What did Logan say? Yes, a messenger said falteringly, placing down a knapsack and flinging it open to reveal its contents. Logan's head rolled in front of Drawood. Huh? Everyone's mind went blank for a few seconds. The messenger stomped on the ground to fill the silence and unsheathed his sword in one fluid moment. He said he'd meet you on the other side. With a sharp flash of light, the blade sliced through Drawood, and he collapsed backward into a heap, his eyes frozen wide in shock. As his armor hit the ground and made a piercing shrill, time finally began to move again. Bastards! What are you? Gah! The commanders had all drawn their weapons, but the messengers were faster, carving their swords through the gathered men and cutting them down. With that, spears rained down from outside the tent and dispatched the rest of the officers in the blink of an eye. Your Highness, it's done. Good work, the man who'd struck Drawood answered simply. He looked at the fallen general. Huh, you're still alive. Fresh blood seeped out of the crevices in his shredded armor onto the ground, but Drawood drew a ragged breath as he glared at his attacker. I knew it. I'm no good with swords, the messenger said. Ugh, bastard, you're... What do I remind you of, someone? He asked as he took off his helmet. He was a young boy with facial features one might dare to call cherubic. It was the face Drawood knew. You're Wayne, he gasped. It's our first time meeting to face like this, isn't it, General Drawood? Tossing aside his helmet, Wayne Selima Arbalast gave a wide smile.